When looking for the king of podcasts, you're at the wrong channel.
Well, excuse me!
Looking for good ideas for life? You're far from good hands.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
If you think the listener is always right, you're far from the right place.
Out of order! Even in the future, nothing works!
Hosted by a Northeasterner by birth, but a rebel by choice.
Are you threatening me?
If you want a host that floats between love and madness,
and we know the night is always gonna be here anyway. Thinking of you's working up my appetite. Looking forward to a little afternoon delight.
then play on and listen to Crazy Train Radio.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
Within the gaming world, there are your general gamers, but then there are those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming. If you're one of those that enjoy the dark underbelly of gaming, we certainly got the place to send you. Scorpion Lair Games. That's right, Scorpion Lair Games is the creators of the true crime hit Killers, the card game. Let's not forget they also have Killers Clothing Company, their profiler game, and things like the 5-Minute Murder channel on YouTube. And we certainly can't forget the new book that is certainly a hit, Beyond the Headliners, True Crimes, Myths, and Legends. Make sure you visit Jeff and the Scorpion Lair Games on Facebook and everywhere today. Also want to give a quick thank you to our friends over at Ultra Pro, who is the leading manufacturer and supplier of sports, comics, and memorabilia storage. Whether it be card cases, sleeves, top loaders, or travel gear, you name it. We are also going to be working with Ultra Pro in the next few months to do some special giveaway packages for the holiday season coming up in a few months, so stay tuned. Make sure you check them out at ultrapro.com.
All right, my name is Joel Goodhart. Don't know if you know the name, but I'm the guy, to be honest, that founded the ECW, started the ECW, started the Attitude Era. But the one thing I always find time to do is listen to this show, Crazy Train Radio. I find the time to listen. I enjoy it. Jonathan Steele's a little funny, but what the hell? Listen to Crazy Train Radio.
Hey folks, it's your least favorite host in the podcast world, the Croc, Jonathan Steele. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. So this next guest is certainly considered one of the unsung heroes when it comes to professional wrestling in Philadelphia. And for those who may or may not know the history, which I think most of the people who listen do know the history of it, this man was a founder of what was called Tri-State Wrestling Alliance, which was the foregone conclusion to, or the predecessor, I guess is the word I'm looking for, to ECW that was run by Todd Gordon and then Mr. Paul Heyman. But this gentleman on the call now was the founder of TWA, and he has a couple projects going on. You will be hearing this. When you hear this, it will be after September 30th. But let's go ahead and welcome Mr. Joel Goodhart. Joel, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. Will you stop calling me sir and gentlemen? It's yo. I go by yo.
Hey, you prick. No. As they would say in South Philly.
There you go.
But how you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. I'm glad to be here. Haven't seen Mike in, God, 5-10 years, whatever it's been. And it's good to get talking, and I'm ready to answer any questions you got.
Well, I'm going to let Mike ask some questions because he's going to be here only part of the time. But I want to start off with what we're going to announce post 30th. And that is officially that you guys, and I say you guys because our friend Chubby Dudley is involved as well. There's going to be a show at the 2300 Arena to remember TWA. So do you care to give us a heads up on what the game plan is?
Sure, it's the only reason I'm on this thing.
I'll drink to that.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I kept watching. I've been out of the promotion business for a long time, but I saw Ric Flair had his final match, and Sting had his final match, and I'm a big fan of ELO, and they're having their final tour. And I said, you know what? I never had my final match publicly. I mean, I had my final match because I went out of business. And I went off the air in the Wrestling Radio show January 18th of 1992. So it's been over 22 years since I've been involved in any great stakes. Anyway, the long and short of it is I decided, and Bay Ragney, who is Chubby Dudley, started the whole ball rolling. He independently, I had nothing to do with it. Independently, he made a decision that he wanted to start a campaign to have a banner dropped at the 2300 Arena. If you've ever been there, they have banners for Todd Gordon, banners for, okay. So he decided he wanted to have one banner with what he called the 5 icons of Philadelphia wrestling. Larry Winters, the late Larry Winters, DC Drake, Johnny Hotbody, Tony Stetson, and Joel Goodhart. So he calls me up. He says, I'm going to start this little thing, and it's on change.com or whatever it is. We're going to start a little campaign, and it got my mind going, okay? Fortunately or unfortunately, my mind works really quick. And I said to Bay, I said, you know what? We're going to do one more show. I'm going to call it One and Done. It's going to be one-time show. I'm not looking to start up the TWA again and do quarterly super cards. I'm not looking to compete against all the local promotions in the Philly area. I want to do one show, one and done. And unfortunately, when I did my TWA shows, I did them at McGonigal Hall at Temple University, and the McGonigal Hall has been torn down. And then I moved over to the Philadelphia Civic Center, and that's torn down. So it's not like I have any. And then I had the Bar Wars. All those buildings are done. So I said, where do you do it? Well, of course, you start looking at schools, and I didn't want to do schools. I didn't want to do churches. I wanted to do legit. So 2300 Arena, it's got a reputation. So I contact 2300 Arena. I had no clue what to do. I talked to the fellow that runs the 2300 Arena. Roger. Yeah, everybody knows Roger? Okay. And I said, Roger, my name is Joel Goodhart. You may not know who I am. And he says, I know who you are. One thing leads to the other. We decided to go for a date. Okay. All right. So what we did is we got the 2300 Arena. It's going to be on Saturday, May 3rd, 2025. Mark it down. You're going to want to be there. Okay. And so we've got these commitments already from talent that were part of the original TWA. And they are going to be in attendance. Donnie Allen, and again, no specific order. Donnie Allen. Donnie was the handler for DC Drake, and Donnie's going to be there. Bob Ortiz, who is the ring announcer for us, and also became a ring announcer for the ECW. Breaker Morant, a great talent, who was in the second version of the TWA. Mike Bruno is going to be there. Mike was one of the original. We actually taught him at Ringmasters Wrestling School. Cujo the Hellhound will be there, and he was in the latter part of the TWA. DC Drake, who was my number one heel. DC Drake, and hopefully he's going to have his name on the banner. But DC Drake is coming in from Rhode Island, and he will be in. John Finnegan, who was one of our original referees, and then went on to be the referee for ECW, or one of the referees for ECW. Johnny Hotbody is committed to being here. He's coming in from Atlantic City. Johnny, again, was one of our number one heels. No question about it. Rich Engling, who Mike knows. Rich Engling, who's very active with Cauliflower Alley Club, of which I'm a lifetime member. I believe Mike is as well. Rich is one of my original referees, and he's going to be in attendance. He'll be coming in from Florida. Jimmy Giannetti is one of our originals, also came from Ringmasters Wrestling School. Mike Keener, who was one of the referees, is going to be with us that day. Blue Meanie, who wrestled for the second version of TWA, but Blue Meanie actually was the original. When he was Brian, he went to Memphis with us on our Squared Circle bus trips, and he was just a kid, and obviously grew into what he is today. Jim Molyneux, who was a referee for ECW, is also one of our original referees. He will be in attendance as well. Glenn Osborne, great talent. Glenn Osborne will be in attendance. Chubby Dudley, or Bay Ragney, will be in attendance. Bay was actually taught at Ringmasters Wrestling School. I went out of business before he actually made his first appearance, but he was certainly with us at the school. Sandman. Everybody knows Sandman. Sandman was taught by us at Ringmasters Wrestling School. And then eventually he came on. He's certainly a talent all by himself. Tony Stetson is going to be there. Tony Stetson lives in South Philly. Tony and Johnny Hotbody had a feud that was ridiculous. Unbelievable. We've got Larry Winters, who passed away, but some of his children will be in attendance on May 3rd to honor Larry Winters. We've got Joe Zanoli. I don't know if you know Joe Zanoli, but Joe Zanoli was one of our referees. Then he was a timekeeper at ECWA, and he's been in the business for years. Chris Wilde, another talent that wrestled for us. He's going to be there. Then a couple guys that aren't on the talent list. Steve Truitt, who became Stevie Wonderful with ECW. He was my original sound guy. He's going to be in attendance. And Jay Soley was also with us, and then he eventually went on to ECW. So the list is long, and I didn't want to bore you with it, but that's the talent from the TWA from yesterday. Then we're going to have 8 matches with some talent, which I won't mention any names yet, but I will tell you some of these matches are phenomenal. And if you liked the TWA and the way we did our matches, you're going to love our show. All right. So it's going to be Saturday, May 3rd. Now, all of the talent that I just mentioned will be at the WrestleCon. And the names that we're not going to announce yet, it's going to be a loaded list, will be at WrestleCon. And most of the WrestleCon attendees will be on the show. Some of them will have to leave early. The bottom line is that this is a one and done. It's our one-time show. Tickets are going to go on sale on October 5th. If you want to get tickets, you go to 2300arena.com and you'll be able to purchase your tickets. In addition to the show, if everything goes right, we're going to have enough signatures to get that banner, and the banner will be done that night. We're also going to have, I hate to say this, but the biggest 10-bell salute you have ever seen. Now, we're only going to ring the bell 10 times. I have a list here, which I will not go into because I certainly don't want to depress you. We have about 40 people, and it's the who's who of people who have died who worked in our shows. Okay? And it's scary when you look. Kevin Sullivan's on there. Curry Von Erich's on there. Terry Funk is on there. I mean, I can go down this list. So we're going to have a phenomenal 10-bell salute, in addition to the 8 matches, in addition to the RassleCon, I mean, we're going to do it all, okay? And the key, if you followed TWA, you never knew exactly what was going to happen. Unlike most cards that are pretty clean, we kind of do some funky things, all right? And the one thing I'm missing, quite frankly, when Larry Winters passed away, he was my booker for the shows, my shows. And now, obviously, I'm not the booker, so Chubby's becoming the booker for the show. Bottom line is, if you are a fan of professional wrestling, not the crap you watch on TV today, but if you're a fan of professional wrestling and you want to see some old school kind of stuff, I know where to be on May 3rd. All right. And I would hope that some of you can make it. I don't know if you want to fly in. I'd love to have you come in. I will tell you that for those who like to take pictures, you're going to have great photography. Okay. We're also going to be streaming the show live. So again, if you can't make it in, you'll be able to watch it, although it's never the same. But it's going to be at the 2300 Arena, Saturday, May 3rd. We're going to pop the place. We're going to put the TWA back on the map. And I'll just end with this. Without the TWA, there would have been no ECW. Without my radio show, there would have been no Todd Gordon because he was the original an advertiser. Before we were TWA, we had my head partners, Carmel and Paul, and we had Wrestling Radio. And we were one of the first original radio shows, and we started promoting shows together. So it's a way of reestablishing. I know Todd is God. Okay, that's what he claims if he's God, I created God. Okay, so what's that make me? I don't know. You go figure out a name. Okay, the bottom line is, again, the way we're going to do this, it's going to have my name written all over it. In fact, the show actually is called Joel Goodhart Presents One and Done. I have a reputation, good, better, and different. Okay, but I have a reputation. I had a style. I won't say I solely created the Attitude Era, but I'm going to tell you I put it into New York. Okay, and what we did when we put the TWA together, we took the best of Memphis, the best of Georgia, the best of Florida, the best of World Class, the best of Pacific Northwest, and we put it all together. I overspent, if you will, a lot of money bringing wrestlers in that nobody else wanted to see. I was the super fan. I was Super Mark. Call it whatever you want. One of the matches that I had Adrian Street against Jimmy Valiant. Nobody in the world bought a ticket from me because of Adrian Street. Okay? But I only wanted to see it. I always saw him on television. I always saw him on Georgia tapes, the Florida tapes, etc. I put him on a show. I got him up to Philadelphia. I won't even go into that long story. But I got him into Philadelphia, and I had that match. It was the third match on the card. And I had to fly him in, fly Miss Linda in, and he wrestled Jimmy Valiant. I had 3 people flying in, 2 hotel rooms, plus the match for a third match on the card. So my one reputation, when you came to my super cards, I had 5 or 6 first number 1 type matches, main events. And we're going to do something very similar. And I can tell you, we're going to have some big surprises when we roll out the matches. I'm done talking. Next question.
Mike, since you're on a short leash time-wise, would you like to ask something?
Thank you. Joel's cards were always can't miss. I work primarily for Japan, who trans me into those cards. The plethora of talent that Joel had, and Joel didn't just beget Todd Gordon and ECW, but his finger on the pulse way back then, late 80s, early 90s. You see it now in AEW, all of these dream things, Forbidden Door, all of this was through the mind of Joel. The last card, or the card that I had my plane tickets, my editor at Gong Magazine, Wally Yamaguchi, had me all set to go. The card was insane, like all of Joel's cards. I think there was going to be a Sheik Abbey rematch from their cage match prior, but the dream match from All Japan, Crawford and Furnace against Gordy and Doc, the Battle of the Nature Boys, Buddy Rogers against Buddy Landell, who'd already started doing radio for that. I think there was some other insane stuff on there, but visionary Joel Goodhart, who begat pretty much everybody. The last Joel's very last show that I was at backstage when the Sheik arrived, and I'd driven in the van, or Sabu had driven it in there, and Sheik had to lobby Joel to put Sabu in the reverse battle royal opening match. And I think Joel put Sabu on the map globally after that. Also on that show, I mean, in no particular order, Abby and Sheik in the cage. I'm standing when I had to go back and get some more film. I'm standing there with Mitsuharu Misawa, who was watching that with some representatives from All Japan. There was, of course, Kevin Sullivan against Terry Funk that was insane with Fallen Angel, Nancy, out there. But in the locker room, there was all of that talent. And when Sheik came in there, Terry Funk, Kevin Sullivan, Eddie Gilbert, everybody started doing, this was a pre-Wayne's World, they started doing the "we're not worthy." They're bowing and showing respect, proper respect in the locker room to the Sheik, Eddie Farhad, whose fan club I ran in the 60s. Joel, those shows were off the charts. You spared no expense. I remember, too, on that last show, Owen Hart, I forget the New Japan boy they brought in, but you did the in-ring that I already sent the photos for your book of you and Tokyo Joe Diego, which was historic, out of Calgary. I don't know if you had to trans him in from Calgary, who helped with that Owen thing. But that Owen match, wasn't that Owen's U.S. debut? It was something like that.
Yep. Now, the one thing with Owen, when I called him, he jumped at the opportunity. He knew me and he knew what we were doing. And when I told him we're going to put this thing together with Japan, and I won a great match, and they did a phenomenal match. Oh. If you remember, Mike, the ring rope actually broke.
Yep.
Okay, and they had to fix it, which hampered them a little bit, but it was a great match, and it was amazing. When the match was over, it was a standing ovation for both of them. Okay, it was phenomenal.
Who has a New Japan stellar match, and then on the next upcoming card, which sadly didn't happen, but we were all ready for it, an All Japan match that would have been 5 stars off the charts, or 7 out of 5 on a Meltzer chart. Doc and Gordy against Crawford and Furnace.
It would have been phenomenal.
The top to bottom, the stuff Luna managing the Blackhearts, and Cactus. What was it? Cactus and Luna against Eddie and Medusa on that.
That was a couple cards before.
Okay, because then I remember then there was just the Luna Medusa grudge match.
Yep.
So much wonderful stuff that, and the card that you're talking about now, it's on May the 3rd, right? Next year?
Yep, Saturday, May 3rd.
I've got some surgeries coming up, but I want to be there because it sounds like a who's who of TWA and just good feelings, good brothers and sisters. It should be off the charts amazing.
Yep, and I will tell you, even though I always consider the local talent to be the talent, we're going to have about, I'll give you a number, 15 to 20 main eventers there as well. Okay? Most of them have some tie-in to TWA in some way, shape, or form. All right? And at some point when we announce it, you'll hear the names and you'll know what I'm talking about. What's amazing, the independent talent today doesn't exist the way it did in 89, 90, and 91. Okay? Now, I don't know, Mike, if you know this story, but when I wanted to put Abby and Sheik together the first time, I didn't know how to get a hold of Eddie or the Sheik. I had no clue. So I asked Abby, and Abby said, I'll give him your number. Sheik called me. Okay? I pick up the phone, and he called himself the Sheik. God forbid he ever said Eddie. And I'm okay. So we put it together. I say, I'm going to put the match together. And then he tells me he doesn't fly, that he's going to have to drive in. But he doesn't drive, but his nephew will drive in. Well, that was Sabu. Okay? So anyway, Eddie comes in, Sabu comes in, and I said, okay, we'll put Sabu flies into the ring. It's on YouTube if you look at it. He runs down the aisle and runs right through the ropes, flies through the ropes. And I see Sabu all the time. And I will tell you, I didn't start him because he was started in the Detroit area. But I brought him in.
He taught him, and then he went to Memphis, but he
Yeah.
came to world prominence with you.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. And the one thing that worked in my favor, knock on wood, is because I was based in Philadelphia and all the magazines were based out of New York, and Bill Apter lives 15 minutes from me down here. George Napolitano lives down here. All of a sudden, Bob Smith from PWI, everybody, they could come to my shows and get pictures of wrestlers they used to have to fly to Texas to get. Okay? And it started to feed on each other. And we had one man when I created the TWA. I did some cards before it was TWA. When I created the TWA and announced it from the ring and showed everybody this new legitimate belt, not these belts that you buy for $10, but I got a legitimate belt made. Bill, as I'm walking out of the ring, it's on video. As I'm walking out of the ring, Bill Apter walks up to me and says, "I just want you to know PWI is going to recognize the TWA." It gave me instant credibility. Okay. And then what was happening is when the wrestlers were coming in, Bill Apter was calling people, "I want to get you set up for some photography." There were people, but we used to have more photographers ringside than people, these local independents have ringside seats. Okay. It was phenomenal. And then all I said to the magazines was, if you're going to run a picture of my show, I want you to put in there, courtesy of Tri-State Wrestling Alliance. All right. So Carmine used to run pictures on Wrestling Eye and PWI. We were all over the place. Then we actually made ourselves to the Japanese magazines. Okay. And I've got some of those magazines still at home. The Japan was running the TWA because they were getting pictures. They were here with Owen Hart. So they had Abdullah, they had Sheik. It was unbelievable. And the neat thing is, now Mike used to fly in from California. And here we are am I right, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we are in Philadelphia for an independent card that outdrew Crockett that week. Okay. It outdrew Crockett. We drew 22, 23, 2,400 people at our independent cards. And Crockett one time had 1,900 people. Okay. So we had the Mikes of the world coming in from California. We had Carmine coming in from the middle of nowhere. We had the people coming up from Memphis. We had a bus trip. John Arezzi used to run the bus trips down from New York. We had 50 people from New York. It was just, I didn't realize it at the time, but we were creating history.
Can I just say something quick? And I've shot 2 ELO concerts. Mr. Blue Sky, always the killer ender.
Love it.
But the guy that did was he the keyboardist who did the modulated voice? He just passed away.
Yeah, he just passed away.
But it's phenomenal. I've recommended, people go, "Oh, ELO." I go, "Man, you got to go." So I didn't know that about you. So we're brothers on ELO. But just
no
quick,
question.
sort of a rib. The second to the last show you did, and I treasure every show I got to photograph for the magazines. But the second to the last one, Abby was chasing around. I forget which photographer, if it was Masa or one of the guys that was, legit Japanese. I was the only Gaijin foreigner shooting for Japan at your shows. But he was chasing him around, and I think or maybe Jimmy Suzuki wanted to be bladed by Abby. So, but, it was a rough gigging. So at the very last Joel Goodhart TWA show, but not true anymore because May 3rd, TWA returns with Joel. I had these professionally done up Band-Aids that had a razor blade inscribed on them with a hash mark, and I gave it to all of the members. We're all wearing these during the Abby Sheik cage match, because there was a lot of shenanigans outside the ring. Sullivan and Terry Funk came out, couldn't have been a better scenario for a dream match. We're all wearing Band-Aids on our foreheads with a razor blade with a hash mark. Don't gig us. Everybody. So the fun, the atmosphere, everybody had fun. And as Joel said, first words, can't miss shows. You're going to want to be there. That is true in the truest sense of the word of Joel Goodhart.
Yeah, you will not be disappointed. I can guarantee it.
Never were. The autograph sessions, I think didn't you used to do some fantastic autograph sessions with Corey?
Unbelievable. I had Abdul. Can you picture back then? I had Abdul doing autograph sessions.
He never did that stuff.
No, but he did it for me because I paid him well. The one thing they knew me as the Wallet, okay? And I had all the Crockett guys do it. And generally what I did is I gave him $1,000 to come do a luncheon, eat the food, and take pictures and sign autographs. Okay. And I would have 30 or 40 people. So I made a couple bucks doing it. But I had you name the person. They did it for me. And the big one, I did a dinner with Ric Flair. We gave him the Wrestler of the Decade. And in fact, that video is also on YouTube. I had Flair. Okay, so Flair all the way down. And the people came, and the fans that came got to spend time with the wrestler. Okay, it just wasn't walking up, sign my shirt or whatever it was. We always had a question and answer session. We tried what we were trying to do. People don't perceive wrestlers as being human beings. Well, the reality is that just about every wrestler is a family man or family woman. Okay, they don't get a whole lot of time off. They spend more time with the fans than they do with their family. And I just wanted to get them to do that, and we arranged it. Every time Crockett announced the card, I tried to figure out who I wanted to put for a luncheon, and we did it. And I gave the fans of Philadelphia, it wasn't just me, but I gave the fans of Philadelphia whatever they wanted, they got. Okay, and one more thing, on my radio show, according to the Q Factor, they give you a Q rating based on the number of listeners you have. According to them, I had 29,000 listeners per quarter hour. And what used to piss me off was I drew 2,500 people to a show when I had 29,000 listeners. Okay, if everybody would have just come to a show that listened, I'd be Vince McMahon. Okay, I would have stayed in business forever.
But you can now with streaming.
Well,
now people can purchase it around the world. They can see, love, and enjoy Mr. First Class Joel Goodhart. Joel, I got to go. My back is out.
Okay.
But the shows were fun. The atmosphere was insane. I remember one time, I think Dory Jr. sitting there talking Carney with Rick Rude in your dressing room.
Right.
Fabulous. The cards were fabulous. The atmosphere was fabulous. We always had a blast. And the business owes you a debt of gratitude. And it's exciting to hear. I had no idea. I thought we were going to be promoting your book that I hopefully have a ton of photos in. But a card and all of these TWA guys. So I'm going to urge everybody, get out there. And I know Jonathan and I want to be there May the 3rd next year. It's going to be a blast. And just to see Hot Body and Stetson again, what matches those guys had.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
The show. Often stole the show.
I'm telling you, nobody understands how good DC Drake and Larry Winters was. They don't understand Johnny Hot Body Tony Stetson, Glenn Osborne, Jimmy Giannetti. They were just phenomenal. Where do you see it? Breaker Moran against Chris Wilde, okay, which is the kind of the new version of Larry Winters and DC Drake. When you see that match, oh my God, what we could have done if we had television, if we had the internet. All right, the temptation for me is to make sure this is one and done. This is my last shot. But after I've been working on this card for so long, I'm getting the itch. But
you should have a dinner, a tribute dinner the night before, and charge people for that. I know people would have a blast.
We're
a little bit.
We're working on stuff. Okay,
right.
We'll leave it at that. Okay, go take care of your back, and we'll talk between now and May for sure.
More power to you. The great Joel Goodhart. Joel and Jonathan, thank you. Have a great rest of the show.
Take care.
You.
Thanks.
Feel better, Mike.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So actually, it's funny that you touched on a couple things, but I had in my notes, which is scary. My parents wanted me to know how to read and write. What the hell was wrong with them? But you mentioned about the maybe overspending at times for talent and all. And one of the stories I heard, obviously, was about bringing Lawler in. And there might have been, say, a $750 payoff, but he was taking less than that at the time. So was there a certain point you realized wow, I may be overpaying talent and such, because you also spent in the way I heard it, you spent more in flights than most people spent in talents
Oh, there's
or
no
indie
question.
shows.
There's no question. Here's what happened. And again, good news, bad news. You know why we're talking 34 years later? Because the talent that I brought in and the talent, the way I paid them, we're still talking about it 34 years later. Okay. One of the things I made a decision, and again, in hindsight, it was the wrong decision. I made a decision. I was a professional. I'm a financial advisor full time. I'm a professional. I want to treat people professionally. So whatever the number is, here's what they knew. They knew that my checks were good. Okay. If I had the cash, I'd exchange it, but they got everything paid by check. They knew that if I made a promise, I never had a written contract. Okay. It was a handshake. It was a commitment over the telephone. But my reputation was such that they accepted it. Now, another true story. One of the first shows I did at Temple University, I had Larry Zbyszko, managed by Paulie Dangerously, Paul Heyman, against David Sammartino, managed by Bruno Sammartino. And I was desperately hoping to get Bruno and Larry Zbyszko to get some heat going. Anyway, that didn't happen. But after the matches were over, and all the boys wait to get paid, Bruno Sammartino at the time had a flight. He lives outside Pittsburgh, or he did live outside Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. He wanted to get a flight back. And he had something like a 5:30 flight. And my show ended at 3 o'clock, 3:30, whatever it was. But back in the day, you were able to get to the airport and walk up to the plane. Okay, you didn't have to go through TSA and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, Bruno in the dressing room, as loud as he could possibly do, because he knew what he was doing. He says to me, "Hey, Joel, do me a favor. I got to run. Send me my check." When he did that, he told all the boys my money was good. Okay, don't worry about it. Take his money, whatever. So then I started getting reputation. You tell me your price. I'll either take it or I'm not going to negotiate. I hate that negotiate. I say $750. I want $500. I'll give you. I don't play to that game. All right. If your price is X, it's X. Now I can say no. So anyway, I was a fan. I wanted these matches to happen. When I had Abdul the Butcher, everybody knows Abby. Abby knows his reputation. He wants every penny, every dollar. He gave me a number. I agreed. That was it. I never had no issues again. Manny Fernandez, anybody that you talk to, I had a series of matches. I was talking about this the other day. I had a series of matches on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I had 3 shows in 3 days. Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon. My main event on all 3 shows was Manny Fernandez against Wahoo McDaniel. They, if I can say they beat the living shit out of each other each night. They were Chop City. They chopped like crazy on Friday night. I said to myself, they're not getting up tomorrow. Not only did they get up, they got to the matches and beat the shit out of each other again. Then on Saturday night, they went back to the rooms, woke up on Sunday. It was Sunday afternoon. They beat they were still red from the night before. Okay. I paid them well to do 3 shows. Now, I could have underpaid them. I could have done like other promoters did. Guess what? It wouldn't have mattered. These guys knew to put out. Look, I had matches where the old TWA, I had a saying that everybody in the arena gets a front row seat at some point during the show. We went all over the buildings. Now, today, the rules are different. I mean, you really have insurance issues, and you really can't do as much outside the ring. We had matches. Philadelphia is known as the city of brotherly love. I had Tony Stetson and Johnny Hotbody do a city of brotherly hate match. Okay? And it was the first to bleed. And as it turned out, they both bled at the same time, so it was a draw. That one video is actually on YouTube. They killed each other. And physically, I don't even know how they did it. DC Drake and Larry Winters. Larry Winters threw DC Drake off a 20-foot ledge. before the ECW did it. Before everywhere you go now, people are diving off the building. Before that, we did it first. We created, didn't realize at the time, we created the Attitude Era. We created an attitude. Now, if you watch Sandman with ECW and realize that he kind of started with us, my contention is that Stone Cold Steve Austin stole the gimmick. Stole it. Now, because we trained Sandman, at some point now, I didn't train Sandman as we know it. I trained it as a beach guy. Okay. Sandman grew up, trained at Ringmasters Wrestling School. His matches that he used to have with JT Smith is ridiculous. We can't get JT. I can't find him. Well, I know he is, but he's not returning my phone call. You'll notice he wasn't on the list. JT and Sandman are as good as it gets. A main event in any building, except it wasn't the names yet. Okay? And I was lucky, as Mike was talking before, between Larry Winters, DC Drake, Johnny Hotbody, Tony Stetson, JT Smith, and Sandman, I could have sold out any arena based on quality. Okay? Now, unfortunately, with the local talent, you got to build it up. When we brought the Blackhearts in from Florida, it was Luna Vachon and the Blackhearts. Now, obviously, since then, Luna's passed away. So with the ECWA, a local or independent organization here, for a couple of years, I was a manager, and I took the name on Joel Blackheart instead of Joel Goodhart. Okay, and I took on Blackheart as a dedication to Luna. Luna was awesome. She was awesome for me. I still have some written notes from her. She was just somebody easy to do. And look, you want to talk about history. Okay, she'll tell you, she could have told you anything about the history of the sport. Mike alluded to the dressing room. You walk back in the dressing room, I swear to God, you had Bam Bam Bigelow over here, Cactus Jack over here, Eddie Gilbert over here, Kevin Sullivan, Terry Funk, Abdul the Butcher. It's amazing. Okay? And I looked at that, and I think back now to those days. I mean, we lost a lot of them. But the dressing room, I wish I would have had a video. The dressing room was just incredible. It was just, and when Mike said, when the Sheik walked in, they all did the bow. They literally did that. They literally did it. And nobody expected the Sheik to leave Detroit. And he called me. I love that story. He called me. All right. So I can tell you those kinds of stories. It was a phenomenal time in my life, a phenomenal time in the history of professional wrestling. We did more in 2.5 years without television, without internet, without cable. Okay. I was drawing 2,500 people. Okay. And people would come to the shows, and they saw, I think Mike alluded to it, top flights from beginning to end. If you were a wrestling fan, it was wrestling heaven. Anyway, sorry for the long answer to your short question.
You're good. You were good. But obviously, with Bruno and my short dealings with him before he passed and stuff, I absolutely agree with you that if he told you Bruno was a guy, folks obviously know the name, but if Bruno told you something, his word was golden. So that doesn't surprise me in the locker room.
Yep.
But
he did it. He did it loud enough that everybody heard it, and he didn't have to do it. He could have just said, "Joel, send me the." No, he did it publicly in that dressing room to let everybody know I was good for the money.
Absolutely. One of the stranger concepts I heard about in your time running TWA, which I found interesting, it'd be an insurance nightmare if you tried it now. Shocker. But you had 12 random fans at one time work as lumberjacks. Where the hell did you get that idea?
Okay. I swear to God to you, it was my idea. Okay. We decided we wanted to do a lumberjack match. Okay. And what we did is, as you came into the Civic Center, if you wanted to be a lumberjack, you had to fill out a little waiver form and sign a piece of paper. Okay. We did a total legitimate shoot. We picked 12 names out of the hat. We brought them in the back. We told them that they have to sign an insurance waiver. Here's the deal. When the guys get thrown out of the ring, you push them back in. You don't fight with them. You just push them back into the ring. The guys, it was Terry Funk against Jerry Lawler, and they know how to do lumberjack matches. Trust me, I put the right two guys inside the ring, okay? The video is also on YouTube. We had 12 people do it, and the work, Terry Funk lost his cool at the beginning of the match. We had one fan out in the ring. Everybody in Philadelphia knew him as Stan. Stan would rub you the wrong way no matter what. Terry Funk went after him, literally over the. Oh my God! And here I'm watching this. I'm thinking, here I'm dead now. Okay. Now today you couldn't do that. Okay, insurance. It's just you can't do it. When we did that match, when we created the match, I said, wait a second. Instead of using the lumberjack of the wrestlers, let's do a shoot. Now, where that all started, when we did the Bar Wars shows, which were probably the best shows I had. The Bar Wars, one time we actually had a 2-day tournament that was going to basically wind up with the champion, who wound up being Tony Stetson, the Bar Wars champion. We ran them. The first one was we had 16 guys, whatever it was, and we put all the names into a hat, and we passed the hat around, and we said, okay, the first match is going to be, and you put your hand in and the hand in, and all the matches were created by pure luck. Okay, and that was my first hint that I can do this. So yeah, we did the lumberjack match. Watched it on video. It was wild. No, we can never do it again. The insurance will not allow it to happen. But I took a chance that the 12 fans that would win wouldn't overstep the bounds, and they almost did. Oh my God! If you watch it a couple of times, Terry wanted to kill people. Okay, but yeah, that was all my idea.
Yeah, and people who listen know how much I love Terry Funk, like the man in the early 2000s when I got to know him a little bit. Mm-hmm. And another co-host from time to time, who's a historian, Brian Young, absolutely knew Terry towards the end, loved him to death. They became buddies the whole bit. And I'm not going to tell it here because I've told the story numerous times of Terry and his time on Roadhouse. After party, let's just say.
Okay.
And I'll put it this way. You would know since you dealt with Terry. It was just Terry being Terry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll say the one thing about Terry, the best way, it's weird. I'm going to say it for Terry and I'll say it for Jerry Lawler too. They were professionals. Okay. And the one thing with Terry, with every match I had him in, whether it was against Kevin Sullivan, whatever, I didn't have to sit down with these guys for 2 seconds and tell them what I needed. Okay? They just knew my style or what I liked. When I had Austin Idol come in, okay, one of the best matches I loved was Austin Idol against Buddy Landel. They went all over the building. I mean, we're talking all over the building, okay? They just loved coming up to Philly. And Austin Idol and Buddy Landel, they were always down south. All right. Now, Buddy became one of our TWA champions. And I was really up when I heard Buddy had passed away. I was really upset. Buddy Landel was somebody that he was my champion. He'd do anything I asked him to do. Okay. DC Drake, when he was the champion, asked anything I could do. All the guys knew that if they worked their asses off, they got paid. But if they worked their asses off, the pictures would wind up in the magazines. They would get grow and grow. Terry Funk, I told Terry, he's on every card I'll have. If he can make it, he should make it. Okay, and he made most of it. He made a lot of cards, the super cards. Bam Bam Bigelow lived in North Jersey. And I told Scott, whenever you're on every card I've got. And if you can't make it, you tell me you opt out or you're in. Cactus Jack was up in Long Island, New York. I had the same thing with Cactus. You're on every show I got, including Bar Wars. He did a Bar Wars show for me, okay, which was a smaller show. It was unbelievable. And these guys all worked with me on this stuff. And what's scary is, I think back to the day, and now keep in mind, this is 1991, so we're talking 33 years ago. 33 years of history since then. I did not recreate what we did in 1990 and 91. We took everything by storm. I was the largest independent promoter in the country. There were times where I could have sworn I was going to beat Vince. Okay, well, nobody's going to beat Vince. I mean, and the one thing I always talk about, Ted Turner goes and buys the NWA, WCW, and he failed with billions of dollars. So the fact that we were able to create what we created with a slim budget is just a miracle. But it was time. It was, and the guys played along. They knew what was going on. I guaranteed these guys 4 shows a year if they wanted it. Okay, 4 dates a year, that's sizable. And then I had the small shows. And I had Kevin Sullivan on my small shows, Buddy Landell on my small shows. I had Dr. Death Steve Williams against Bam Bam Bigelow, with the referee being Buddy Rogers.
Which was going to set up the Battle of the Nature Boy, right?
Yep. Well, and the Battle of the Nature Boys didn't happen the way I wanted it to happen. Okay? The Battle of the Nature Boys, my original concept was to have Buddy Landell against Ric Flair. And if you remember, that was the time when Ric Flair was trying to get in. He wasn't sure if he was going to WCW, WWE. Rick agreed to work for me. I knew Rick. He did the dinner for me in 1989. We already had agreed on the number, okay? And my original match was going to be Ric Flair against Buddy Landell, okay? And believe it or not, Buddy Landell was going to win that match, okay? Then Buddy Rogers was going to come out and challenge Buddy Landell for the belt. And Buddy Rogers was going to win the belt, okay? Buddy Landell is the one that came up with the whole storyline. And he was the one that was going to win the belt to lose the belt. Okay? That's the professionals. You didn't have to say who's going over. The one thing you learn about wrestling, especially from what I did, the one thing I learned, now I never wrestled. Okay? I had a wrestling school, but I never wrestled. The one thing I learned is you don't have to win to get over. Okay? Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Ole Anderson all proved, because they had the worst one-loss record, quote unquote, of anybody. But they were over.
At the next TV or whatever, they get their heat back and everything else.
They get it all back. So the bottom line is you don't have to win. See, the problem with a lot of local wrestlers today is they think they have to win. Bullshit. You don't have to win. You just got to be good at what you do. Okay? And I'm telling you, I didn't have to tell the guys. I didn't have to tell the local guys. Local guys just knew. If you're on a card with Sheik Abdullah, it's really hard to beat them. But my local guys did. They did. Anyway.
Well, it's funny because you mentioned about the business and stuff. The business behind the business, I should say. And obviously things have changed now because things have gone from handshakes to contracts and stuff. Sure. Do you think things could still, and I'm a lot like this as well, that if we agree to something, I'm going to hold up my end of the bargain. Mm-hmm. But do you think that business could still be that way, that if you say something, it means something?
No, those days are gone. Those days are gone. And the problem that you've got, the one argument, all of these guys are independent contractors until they get a salary check. If you're going to get my number, $600,000 a year for 3 years, you're now an employee. Okay? And what happens is the territories are gone. There are no more territories. Okay? When I used to go to Memphis twice a year, when you go to Memphis, you go to Jackson, Tennessee, you go to Nashville, you get the circuit. Okay? If you remember with Memphis, they ran every Monday night. Mm-hmm. Okay, and down in Memphis Thursday, every Monday night you were here, every Tuesday night you're here, every Wednesday night you're here.
Wednesday was Evansville, and yeah.
Yeah, they had a circuit. Now WWE doesn't have a circuit. They go wherever they can get the money. Okay, and now they're doing shows in England, and God bless them. Look, here's the reality: Vince McMahon became a billionaire, and I didn't like the guy. I didn't like what he did to the sport. He made $1 billion. Okay, so somebody likes what he did. Now keep on. WrestleMania was in Philadelphia this year. Mm-hmm. I live right outside Philadelphia. I attended not one show. I still have not watched that WrestleMania. I didn't go to the RassleCons. I didn't go to the signature party. Philadelphia was abuzz that whole weekend. Not me. I'm not a fan of the WWF, WWE. Okay. Now, matches are getting a little bit better from what I'm being told. To this, I still don't watch it. If Monday night is Raw, I don't watch it. And it's just my style. I am 34 years later. I still like kayfabe. Okay, the whole thing now where everybody's trying, it's just not me. Okay, and I find the internet killed the sport. Absolutely killed the sport. Cable killed the sport. When wrestling was wrestling back in the day, okay, these guys drove from one event to the other. They didn't fly. They got now think about this. If you're a main eventer and the show's a Saturday night at 7 o'clock, you're not on until 10. But you're sitting there for 3.5 hours before you even go on. Okay, and you drove 4 hours to get there. So today, people earned their stripes back in the day. Okay, I think today, if you're 6'4", blonde hair, and you're built like a brick shithouse, you'll get work. Okay, just my opinion. It's more pictures, more TV.
Well, speaking of times of the show and such, you mentioned his name earlier. Well, as far as like the trip, when I say you mentioned the times of the show, sorry, I should correct myself here. But yeah, show might start at 7. You might not get on until 9:30, 10 o'clock, etc. But you mentioned a name earlier, in Manny Fernandez. That weekend that he did those 3 shows for you, was that the same weekend that he got a booking in Jersey and then?
No. So it was a different. The 3 shows were local shows. All right, I had one show in the Philadelphia Civic Center, and it was going to be Abdullah the Butcher versus Manny Fernandez. Manny calls me up in the week and he says, "Joel, I have an opportunity. I have a booking in North Jersey. If I take it, I can do the Saturday afternoon show. I can do that show and then drive down to your show. Would you mind if I take the booking?" I said to him, "Look, I'll never deprive anybody from making a buck. No, just make sure you're on time." He goes and does the booking, and I don't know what he got paid with the other guy, but he goes and does the booking. The deal was that he was supposed to go on first so he can get the hell out of there and come down to my show. He wound up being in the main event. Okay, long story long, he drives down to my show, but he drives down and changes in his car. Okay, so when he would get to my building, he'd be ready. It comes time to put Abdul, and when I had things on posts on the wall, if Abdul is next, Abdul is next. Abby comes out, and he's not even in the building yet. Okay, and there was no cell phones to go call, tell you he's on his way. He said he was coming. I needed something to happen. Cactus goes out, and Cactus had been on the show earlier in the card, and Cactus gets his ass kicked. Okay, and he's finally getting back to Abby. And then as soon as he starts getting back to Abby, Manny gets there. Manny comes in the back, says hello to me real quick, and literally runs out down the aisle, runs into the ring and attacks Abby. And of course, the match starts. Okay, and then Abby beats the hell out of Manny Fernandez. But no, so that was a different show altogether.
Okay.
But
well,
Manny
speaking
his
of
commitment.
Yeah, and it's nice to hear that because you hear different things about Manny, but it's nice to hear.
Yeah, and look, at the time I used Manny 6 times. Okay, I had him once against Nikita Koloff, once against Ivan Koloff, 3 times against Wahoo McDaniel, and once against Abdullah. I mean, look at that. Think about that. That's phenomenal. Manny,
Mind blown.
total professional. Every time I saw him, we shook a hand. We knew what was going on. I didn't have to tell him a thing. Didn't have to say a word. But you think about that. I have one guy that wrestled Nikita, Ivan, Wahoo McDaniel 3 times, and Abdullah Butcher.
Well, speaking of Abby, and I got to meet him, I guess, twice at an indie show I was helping out with back in early 2000s. It was the same company I started to get to know Terry at and all that. But, there's a funny Abby story, but I can tell you that later. It's not of any doing or importance or whatnot. But you had a chance to, and I don't know if it was under the TWA banner, Abby versus Brody. How was that?
Okay. True story. That was before the TWA banner. That's when Carmelo and I were producing shows. I wanted Abby Brody because that was the big name. Abby, like I said, I had a friendship with Abby from day one. I asked him to get me Brody. And sure enough, he got me Brody. He calls me up. He says, "We got Brody. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. Just call him and tell him his number." We had Abby Brody, and in the back, they say to me, it was me and Carmella, and I was always the one in the back more times than not. They said to me, "What do you want from us tonight?" And I said, "I want pure Abby Brody. Just go for it." Okay. They wound up breaking $2,200 worth of tables and chairs. Now, keep in mind, this is in 1986 and 87 or whatever, when $2,200 was serious money. Okay. We wound up not making a profit on that show because they went nuts. Okay. And I've had the opportunity in the recent time to talk to Barbara Goodish, who's Rosa Brody's widow. Okay. And Brody, now I only had Brody once that I can remember. I only had Brody once. Shook a hand. He was not the Bruiser Brody. And that's the one thing I love about this business is the true professionals. Bruiser Brody was a Bruiser Brody, but when the match was over, he shook your hand and he was a family man.
Frank Goodish, hey, how you doing?
Yep. And it's just really weird, but it was a great match. But yes, it was before TWA. And, as you're going through this, you can almost get a sense that the book I'm writing is going to be really cool.
Well, speaking of which, we'll go there. What is the status of this book you've been working on?
Okay. It is, I'll say according to Scott Teal, it's 95% done. Okay. I think the book will be finished by the end of October. It's going to be published. And when it's published, my rollout date is going to be May 3rd. If you come to the May 3rd show, you'll be able to buy the book first edition. The book, I want to call it "We Wrestled, We Brawl, We Did It All." Okay, that was our logo. That was our saying for the TWA. If you come, I got to tell you, if you come on May 3rd and you come for the day to come to the RassleCon, bring your credit card because we're going to have merchandise that you're never going to be able to get again. We're going to have shirts that say "We wrestled, we brawl, we did it all." And Carmel and I used to have shirts for our fan club. And the shirt said, "I'm out of the closet, no longer meek. I'm finally admitting I'm a wrestling freak." We're going to have those shirts. We're going to have the book. We're going to have copies of the banners. It's a one-shot deal. Okay. And it's an expensive show to put on. So we got to kind of pick up where we can pick up. The one thing I will tell you, the book is, like I said, 95% done. I have 2 co-writers, ghostwriters, if you will, Dan Murphy, who started the book, and Scott Teal.
Dan.
Okay. Dan and Scott have a great reputation. I don't know how anybody else had both of them help write the book, write a book. I'm going to make some of the book proceeds go to Cauliflower Alley Club, because I really do believe in what they do. I think that everybody who's in the business should be a lifetime member. It's $400 to be a lifetime member, and they should be a member of the Cauliflower Alley Club, because there's a lot of wrestlers out there that are hurting that really could use some help. So I'm doing the show for that. I'm going to do my book for part of that for the book. The book is, like I said, 95% done. The way the book is written, Scott's going to call me this. I'm calling Scott Friday morning. We arranged this. I'm going to call him at 6 o'clock, and he'll ask me a question. And if you can't tell, I'll go an hour and give him an answer. And then he takes it and puts it into book form. Okay? When this book is done, when I read the final script, every time I read the preliminaries, I say to myself, holy shit, I did a lot of good stuff. Okay? The book is going to be a good book. It'll be a great read for wrestling fans. And if you're hardcore wrestling fans, if you were into the ECW, if you're into the TWA and Memphis wrestling, the book will be for you.
With all the craziness of the business, and thank you for the time, Joel, but from things you saw when you were running and everything else, how does one stay sane and avoiding things like drugs and stuff? Like a Cactus and Nabby, there's very few guys or gals that you go, they might have a drink or two, but they avoided the nonsense and taking other people down wrong roads.
Yep. I'll tell you, part of it was, look, it was something I never got into. Okay. And I never saw it in my shows. I never saw anything in the back. Now, I can tell you, I'm sure they did. Okay. Here's what happens. This goes back to the big picture. If you follow professional wrestling is gypsies. Okay. They're never in the same town 2 days in a row. And then because especially the guys that work for WWE, WCW, those guys are on tour. Now, I remember back in the day, these guys agreed to do 300 days a year. Now, that didn't mean that they worked 10 days or 25 days a month and got 2 weekends off. They never got weekends off. Okay. They could be booked 7 days in a row and then get 2 days off. And on the 7 days, 2 of those days, they did TV shoots. So they did 3 or 4 matches. Okay. Because they were personal service contracts. All right. The only way to get through that was to do drugs. Okay. I mean, that's the reality. Now, think about this one. When Larry Bird and Dr. J used to play against, I love basketball, used to play against each other. When the game was over, they went to dinner together. They didn't like each other on the court, but once the show was over, they went to dinner with professional wrestlers. You don't see that happen. And if that happens, they get arrested. Duggan and Iron Sheik, if you remember that whole mess that they had.
I was a little kid at the time, but yeah.
Okay. Bottom line is, I remember doing a show in Delaware, and I had in the main event, it was a couple of different main events, but I had Paul Orndorff and I had the Iron Sheik. Now, the Iron Sheik and Paul Orndorff, not the same match, but they were on the card. They lived almost next door to each other in Atlanta, Georgia. Okay? So it used to be that Paul Orndorff drove Iron Sheik to the airport. Okay? When they flew in, they got a car. And when they rented a car to go to Delaware, what I told them is one of you guys has to get out 2 blocks before. Well, Iron Sheik gets out with his luggage and he walks up to the arena. Well, it's a gym. Walks up to the gym because Orndorff was not going to drive him up. They couldn't be seen in the same car. Okay, today it doesn't matter. Okay, the business is so exposed now that what used to work doesn't work anymore. Okay, that's why I'm convinced TWA could not happen again today. And a million can't do it because the best part of our shows were the angles. Well, now if they want an angle, 2 minutes later, it's in the newsletters. Okay, it's all over the podcast. Well, they're all over the place. Okay, so you can't keep a secret in this business. And if you're going to do something, if you remember Memphis Reading, what you did in Memphis, Jackson, Tennessee, didn't know about it. It's 2 hours away because there was no cable. Okay, now you have something happens in Topeka, Kansas, and the entire world knows about it within 30 seconds. All right, and now these guys have agents. If I wanted a guy to do a luncheon, I bet you they all want $10,000. Okay, and then you would have to pay him $5,000 up front, and the rest of it a check. It's ridiculous. You can't do what you used to do.
Speaking of that, and I'm not going to mention names on air, but I'm talking, let's say 2003, 2004-ish, give or take, maybe even 2006, but in that time period. Speaking of agents and all this other shit and rigmarole that you would have to do if you wanted to do an appearance or whatever, your top guys. Well, a top guy was booked for a public signing who happened to be working for a major company. And like you said, it's not like he could just call him up, hey, can we do this and work out a number? Sure. So they had to book through I'm a memorabilia collector and all that kind of shit. So I know that side of the business too. So anyway, they booked this particular, he was a top name talent. And I said to the person running the event, I said, hey, how much did you, out of curiosity, what did talent X get to do this appearance? And obviously lodging and travels included and all that shit, besides the payday.
Yeah.
And so he says, I gave them, let's say, or I paid 15 grand, let's say, due to the signing at that time. Okay. You know how much, and I knew someone who knew the talent, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus or anything like that, or trying to be nosy. I heard rumblings from people who knew this talent. How much do you think he would have got out of that 15K? How much do you think that talent saw?
5.
About right. The company took about 2/3 of.
Yep.
Just for agreeing to the date and signing a contract.
Yep.
And I was like, that, excuse me for saying, it's like, that fucking blows.
It does. But again, he didn't have to do the job.
True.
That's the problem here. Okay. And keep in mind, there has never been a union in wrestling. And I'm not a union guy, but wrestlers, their job is to get a payday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you can make 90% of the money and still give them a payday, they don't care. They didn't care that you made money. They just wanted their number, whatever their number was. Okay. I had Curry Von Erich, against Jerry Lawler on one of my cards. Curry Von Erich was notorious for being a no-show outside of Texas. Okay. So I booked Curry, had Curry on the phone. I booked Curry Von Erich. The night before, Friday night, they were wrestling at the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas. Okay. And I needed the guys to get on the first plane, the red eye, and get into Philadelphia because we had an afternoon show. I was scared. Oh, hold up, my battery's dying, so hold on a second. All right, let me see if I can get my battery. Hold it, close. Okay, so I'm still okay. I do have to get, anyway, what I was saying, Curry Von Erich, I said to Jerry Lawler, because he was going to be on the card, I said to Jerry, I'm willing to pay you extra to make sure Curry's on the plane. Okay? Well, I love Jerry to death, but if you give Jerry a little extra, he'll do what he has to do. He gets Curry on the plane. Curry flies from Dallas to Philadelphia. My ex-brother-in-law at the time picks him up, takes him from the airport, and he says, do me a favor, I want to stop by Pat Steaks and get some steak sandwich. They drive into South Philly, go to Pat Steaks, get 2 steaks. They come to Temple University. When he gets to Temple University, he says to my ring announcer, what city am I in? Okay. He didn't know where he was. All right. Now, Curry, the only reason he was there was because Jerry Lawler drug his ass out. Okay. I paid Jerry Lawler I'm going to bow for 1 second. He wanted to get a little extra money to make sure Curry got on the plane, and he did. So here's what I do discover. Well, the plug fell out of my computer. Here we go. All right. Sorry about that. When you realize what these guys do, they get paid. All they want is payday. They look at it as a payday. And what worked for me in hindsight, is when I booked Manny Fernandez 6 times. He knew anytime he was available, if I was having a show, he was going to be on the card. Okay, so I gave these guys, Garrett, so Abdullah Butcher, Bam Bam Bigelow, Cactus Jack, I had my heart, Eddie Gilbert. Eddie was phenomenal. Buddy Landell, I had told Buddy Landell, you're on every one of my cards, small or large, because he was the one who worked the small shows. Okay? Even the small shows, I didn't give him as much money, but I started flying in, started give him a hotel. Okay? Now, a couple times he stayed at my house, so I didn't have to get him a hotel. The one thing you learn about this business, even today, the wrestlers that you watch on television, they don't get paid to wrestle. They get paid to appear. There's a difference, okay? And to appear, that means that their job is done. But Andre the Giant was a classic. Andre didn't wrestle. He's just a monster, okay? But if you put Andre the Giant on your billboard, you sold tickets. His job was done. His job was done an hour before the matches started. That's the difference.
Right on. Well, Joel, I appreciate the time, and I know Mike appreciated the time for a little bit he could join us. But folks, check out the links that we will have. It's going to be the show at the 2300 Arena, which is the old ECW arena. Do you want to give a final push about that again?
Yeah, I'll give one more push. You got to go online. We'll get you the link. You got to go online and sign the petition to get that banner. We need 1,000 signatures. All right, so we'll get you that. Saturday, May 3rd, 2300 Arena all day. We're going to have a RassleCon. We're calling it RassleCon starting at 12 noon. That's going to run till 3:30. And then we're going to have 7:30, doors open at 6. So you'll be able to grab some dinner if you want. And then you're going to see a show. You're going to see a show that's going to give you the old TWA flavor. There's going to be some really cool matches. I know most of them at this point. I will tell you, you're going to be surprised at some of the talent on the show. You're going to be surprised at some of the angles that run. You're going to have a great show. And here's what I will promise you. If you buy a ticket, whether you buy the front row tickets or the back row, it's all price sensitive. I promise you, you will enjoy the show. It will be money well spent. But I will also tell you, with all the stuff that we're going to have at the RassleCon, bring your credit cards. You're going to have a ball, and you're going to get your memorabilia guy. You're going to be in love with this stuff. Okay, I look forward to seeing everybody on Saturday, May 3rd. If my book comes out, if you want me to sign the book, I'll sign it for you. I want you there. I'm begging you, if you like the TWA in any way, shape, or form, just remember we wrestled, we brawled, we did it all, and we did it all for you. Thanks.
Oh, before I let you go, and I just remembered it here, and I don't know if we can say this as we close out. They're apparently going to be filming a documentary on you?
Yes, and we're not. The answer is yes. The documentary is going to be on me. It's going to be based on, they're going to be interviewing a lot of the wrestlers from the TWA era. They're certainly going to be at the matches to film some of the matches. We're filming a documentary.
Right on. So we'll keep people posted on that as well.
Yep.
But Joel, Thank you so much.
No problem. I'm glad to be here anytime. Just give me a call.
Hey there, Friday fans. We know how much you enjoy the movies. Enjoy grabbing your Friday merchandise and interacting with the Friday family, whether it be at conventions or during our particular watch-alongs. Well, when you're looking to get yourself masks, why not check out our friends over at Camp Blood Customs out of New York State and order your specific custom mask from any of the films. All orders are made specifically. Your needs and wants are. Make sure you find Camp Blood Customs on Facebook, Instagram, and all over social media, and order yours today.
This is Jake the Snake Roberts. You're listening to Crazy Train Radio.